what I want to say, oh, there's another thing I did want to ask about actually, because a lot of the time, you see a lot of, so Jonathan Haidt, I don't know if you know Jonathan Haidt, but he's a social
Yeah.
psychologist.
Yeah.
He has this article on, what's it called, the warping of democracy, I think he wrote for The Atlantic. And he talks about this idea of this, that social media's come and it's sort of reinforced political ideas that people have, and you have to be louder and shout, be the most angry person you could possibly be. You have to put the greatest performance you can put on in order for people to give you the likes and the adulation and whatever they give you. And then that's just made people go further and further towards their respective camps. The ideas of the echo chambers that we have on social media, and I totally get that. And at the same time, there's a lot of people pointing the finger at the Muslims who go towards the left, and they're like, "Oh, you guys, you're getting caught up, social justice, da da da." But then I remember we had a program at the Karima Foundation in our organization, Islam and the Philosophy of LGBT, where we had a philosopher come in and talk about the problem with progressive ideas and we've got this whole thing going on about teaching kids about transgenders and craziness. And when that happened, I remember one of the brothers put his hand up and asked a question. He goes, "Well, I saw a Ben Shapiro video," and I was like, "Okay." Like I get a bit of, I had a craze where I was like, Jordan Peterson's the greatest thing since sliced bread, and I read his book, and then I later got over it. But I was just like, Ben Shapiro at a Muslim event being quoted with the stuff that he's come out about Muslims and the Palestinians and it's clear Zionist bigotry and stuff that he's got. So is there a danger at the same time? And I'm not pointing fingers at you whatsoever, but I just want to make that, isn't there a problem that the echo chambers on the left, and then now we're pushing ourselves to echo chambers on the right? Where's the middle path where we're neither right, we're neither left? It's that independent Muslim identity.
Well, I think the independent Muslim identity will come when you have people who decide to support individuals who are trying to speak a moderate message, and that is, in other words, instead of having me or anyone else rely on a Ben Shapiro, individuals with the capacity to create the nice video like a Ben Shapiro video could come and they can, help me to create that video, right? But the way I look at it is like this. Certain people are saying some very unique things and very useful things, and those people are not all Muslims. If Muslims were saying them, then I would be sharing those Muslims. But I don't see any Muslims sharing those people's views, right, which are useful for Muslims, right? And so I could try, but again, I don't have the time, I don't have the equipment, that's not my specialty, right? I share things that I consider to be useful information, right? Even if they come from someone who's not perfect, right? And who is perfect, right? Who is perfect? I'm not easily put off by someone who calls me a name or says something bad about me. I expect that from, especially a non-Muslim, that they're not going to have a good opinion of Islam and Muslims. Otherwise they would be Muslim, right? The very fact that they're not Muslim lets you know they have a problem with Islam, right? So again, and I would say that, for instance, Ben Shapiro, Palestine is probably the only issue that comes up to me that he becomes completely unreasonable, becomes totally irrational. Almost everything else I've heard him speak about has been very reasonable, very rational. When it comes to that topic, he's very emotional, right? He's totally unreasonable when it comes to that issue, right? However, I don't share many of these videos. I haven't shared him in probably a couple of years now, I think. But I've shared a couple of his in the past, right? Because again, he was saying something very unique. I don't think this is about promoting the echo chamber. If anything, is about trying to overcome the echo chamber, because the only perspective that Muslims know is the liberal perspective. That's all they know, right? You see, and I made it clear. As a matter of fact, I did a post about this a couple of days ago. I said that I've talked about sort of like an imaginary person who says to me, "Why are you? You say that you're trying to be objective, but why do you keep sharing all of these views from the other side?" And so I respond by saying that, well, who said I was trying to be objective? I'm totally biased, right? You already know the other side. That's the whole point, right? You see, so what I've been trying to do, what I see myself trying to do, is trying to provide Muslims with as much as much healthy or good information as possible for them to make the proper choices, the proper choices about our lives, the proper choices about our deen, about our future. That's what I see myself doing. You see, So again, I know I have a bias, but that in itself doesn't mean that, again, I see myself as I'm like a diehard conservative, diehard sort of Republican. To me, what I see it is like this: is that I see that when I try to apply the Quranic teachings and the principles of the Quran, right, to politics and in other areas, that I just so happen, this is a coincidence, I happen to line up more with what conservatives are presently saying, right? And I don't really have any trust in the Conservative Party or the Republican Party myself, right? I actually, again, I have a certain bias towards Trump. There's no doubt about that, but that doesn't mean I have a bias towards the Conservative Party, the establishment. I don't have a bias in that particular regard. Again, what I look at it is like this, that our deen, when we look at our universals, right, the very first thing, the first universal is the preservation of religion, hifz ad-din, right? And in America, we have something called the First Amendment, right? The First Amendment, which gives me the right to my religion, rightness, the freedom of thought, the rightness to follow my conscience, right? And then the second of the universals is hifz nafs, the preservation of bodily integrity or preservation of life, right? And in America, we have something called the Second Amendment, right? And of course, one of the main things that the Second Amendment gives is the right to bear arms, right? And that right to bear arms, was included as a way to ensure that governments don't act tyrannically, right? And for me, I'm like, okay, well, when I look at the parties and in particular the candidates, right, running for office, and I ask myself, okay, well, what are my greater interests and who's going to protect those interests? I see it coming from the right. I see that the First Amendment is threatened by the left and the Second Amendment is threatened by the left. Both, they're trying to ban, the right to bear arms. They're trying to force people to not practice their religion openly. They can be compelling people to adopt LGBTQ ideology and beliefs and all these other things, and threatening you, firing you from your jobs, not allowing you to get promotions because among other things. You see all the people in Hollywood that they jump on the bandwagon in order to keep their jobs. That they're everybody's a liberal, everybody's a pro, everybody loves black people now. So if I just focus on those two to begin with, then the private property, the right to private property, hifz al-mal, right? That's among the universals of the deen as well. I see that the people on the right, they're championing the right for me to own my wealth and to keep my wealth, rather than have somebody come and just say, hey, because you're rich, I'm going to take away 50% of all that you have and give it to all these people who did nothing to earn it. Right. So no, I don't see. So for me, I see myself. It's conservatism is not what's dictating my decisions and my positions. Islam is dictating to me my decisions and my positions. You see, that's the way I see it. You see, so we shouldn't see my post about me necessarily trying to promote people. Listen, I don't even care if you vote. Right. I don't care if you vote Republican, Democrat. Listen, like, that's not even what it's about. It's about having as much good information as you possibly can have before you make a decision, because you should be making an informed decision. But if you have an allergy to Fox News, if you have an allergy to Tucker, you have an allergy to Ben Shapiro or to PragerU or whatever, things like that, that only works against you. That's to your detriment, that you didn't take the opportunity to at least listen to see what you could take, because the Quran tells us about Allah gives good tidings to his ibad, his servants. Those who hear words and hear statements and they follow the best of them. This is what we do. Because just because there's one thing about a person that's bad doesn't mean that we throw away everything else. And just because there may be one statement among a lot of other statements is bad doesn't mean that we cast off and we throw away everything else which is there.
Do you have anything to come back on that? So I was just going to ask as well. I just think, I feel like at the moment, And one of the things that we actually discussed, and I realize, you know, we said we'd only take up an hour and a half of your time, and we're already a bit over that.
I'm enjoying this.
But it's just a case of, I think for a lot of people, it's just a case of just being aware that, you know, we do need our own Islamic narrative, because again, the narrative is, you know, so we've understood, and so in my opinion, I've seen a lot of people sort of, yeah, so we understand what the left is about. We understand what not just the left, but, you know, the progressive secular liberalism is about. And is there a danger of actually sort of then going, oh, actually, we're going to go all the way completely on the other side, actually? So we need to be understanding that. And I think I've not really heard many people talk about it in the way that you've just explained it there, in terms of saying it's based on my Islam. It's not based on my right or left. It's not based on my conservative liberalism or whatever it might be. It's actually based on my understanding of what my Islam brings to me. And again, that, yeah.
Yeah, and then the other part too is that when we talk a lot about Islamophobia, but we don't talk about Imanophobia, right? So Islamophobia, we say Islamophobia is a type of racism, anti-Muslim racism, right? And that largely is coming from the right, right? And so we're physically endangered, right? Because we've seen shootings happen, we know, throughout, you know, past few years, right, by people who identified with the right. Yeah, it is a problem, you know. However, we don't talk much about the danger to our iman, to our faith, and the faith of our children, right? Right, which is fundamentally primarily coming from the left, right? You know, and I think that danger is much more significant than the danger that's coming from the right. Because, see, a physical threat, I can protect myself from a physical threat. I can learn how to shoot. I can learn how to fight. I can put up security cameras. I can put a guard at the door. I can defend that. But if I let you into my heart, you see, you know, and you see, it's disastrous. It's disastrous. And right now, a lot of young people are very confused about Islam. They're very confused about what Islam represents. They're very confused about the whole thing, LGBTQ, and so many other things, right? Because of so-called activist leaders, or sometimes imams and so-called scholars, who are just simply catering to this stuff. They're not calling it out.